Welcome back to the Live Like Jesus podcast, where we strive to look and live like Jesus more and more each and every day. So with me today, of course, as always, John.
The beautiful.
Yes, the beautiful. John the beautiful. I was trying to come up with a term.
The beautiful is the right one, though.
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
Glad to be here.
All right. And then also with us is Olivia Broussard. Perhaps soon to be, Lord willing, Everett.
Hopefully.
Everett. Yes, hopefully.
If it works out, we always want to put that on there.
Yeah.
Yes. So, glad to be with everybody. Glad that y'all are here, back with us here. So last time on the podcast, we talked about Sabbath and what Sabbath means, how you practice Sabbath. And it was a great conversation. And today we're going to talk about another habit that you can actually incorporate into Sabbath, which is important to remember that, as we go through these habits, we're not talking about 9 things that you got to now add to your life, but these are all work in conjunction together. So today we're going to talk about the habit of prayer.
Yeah, and so for the next couple of episodes, we're going to get into the habit of prayer and kind of define it in this first episode that we're doing right now, and then we're going to talk about maybe some deeper things, what comes out of prayer in the next episode. But just kind of looking at what is prayer? Is it it is communication with God, and and kind of show how vital it is as a spiritual practice for believers. And
right.
I think sometimes we want to look at it as a thing that is a habit and not just a thing that we do every now and then.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah. And or we don't just do it as like a last line of defense, a 911 call or something like that. I can remember when I was younger.
Oh no, I didn't study.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. I can remember being in college and being like, Lord, you're going to have to help me through this one.
Yeah. I prayed that every day in my chemistry class.
Yeah, exactly. And so just kind of looking at, some of the what actually is prayer. And kind of wondering about the importance of prayer. And so I want to start there with you guys to kind of, why is prayer such an important thing for your life and kind of your habits and how you go through things? Either one of y'all can answer that.
Yeah, so prayer for me, the reason it's so important is just the idea that I get to talk to God and God speaks to me, which is, when you talk about what is prayer, that's at its simplest form. It's you speaking to God. I get to talk to God and God speaks with me. So that's why is it important for me? That's the number one reason that it's important, is because I can't figure life out on my own. Yeah. There's no way. Like I just can't do it. I don't have the wisdom to figure it out. I need His wisdom, His understanding, and the way that I personally get that is through prayer.
Yeah, and so like as He, sort of as that communication happens, you're growing in that way, but you're also you're getting some guidance and some strength for like what life is throwing at you in those moments. So yeah. I think it would be important for us to spend a little bit of time talking about when we've actually seen this happen in our own lives. If it's a building block, because that's what we're saying. Like especially when it comes to Sabbath, it's something that we want to incorporate into our Sabbath, as we talked about last time. How have you guys seen the Lord use this communication with Him? Because, sometimes it feels like just something we kind of add on to a dinner. Yeah. Or we just, like we said, we go to Him in the end. But like how, as you've incorporated, how have you seen Him use it to sort of guide you in decision-making and, different things that you have going on in your life?
Yeah, well, for me, prayer too, just going off of what you said, it also is just so important for me to simply remember God, because I know so many times I'm going through my day, I'm going through so many things, and like I can just be thinking my own thoughts, like what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this situation? How am I going to handle this relationship and all these things? But whenever I stop and I remember to pray, it takes the attention off of me and what I'm going to do and all of these things, and it just simply helps me remember that I'm not in control of the situation. And so for me, that's a big thing. It's just remembering God.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, because control is a big thing for all of us. I think, some of us try to act like it's not, but it really is. Most of us struggle with, I want to control this situation. I want to put my own imprint on it. And so to kind of figure that out. But how have you seen it sort of guide your decision-making as you navigate different circumstances in your life, Bryan?
So for me, it's seeking peace. And the scripture's clear, peace is what guards your heart. And so for me, in my prayer life, especially when it comes down to decision-making, to answer your specific question, that's what I do is I stay in that moment and I stay in that posture of prayer, seeking God's wisdom through His word, through friends, people that I know and trust, that I believe they walk with the Lord in a very powerful way. Seek their wisdom, the Proverbs, safety, and wisdom and many counselors. Sorry.
Yeah, right. No, yeah.
Get that backwards. But all of that is in an effort to seek the peace of the Lord. The peace goes beyond all understanding. And for me, that's the huge mark of decision making. So I've been in situations, I think I alluded to it one time on one of the previous podcasts, that, been in a situation where there was the complete absence of peace for something that I wanted. And I had to go with that of like, okay, well, we're going to have to do the opposite then. And then there's been other situations where there is a complete peace about a direction that I thought I needed to go. And when I say peace, it's the ability to, like you talked about control. To me, the end of control is anxiety and worry. That's where it usually ends up.
That's where we end. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed.
So for me, when I say I know I'm at peace with this, is when I can think about it and be joyful and at rest, instead of what am I going to do?
Instead of frantic.
Oh my goodness, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What if this happens? What if that happens? Yeah. When you have the peace that goes beyond all understanding, the what ifs disappear.
Yeah. And it usually in there, in a weird way, it becomes obvious that you've spent time with God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for me, it's sort of frustrating at times because you were saying it reminds you of God. It's frustrating that you don't start there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because then once I get there, I'm like, why did I forget?
Yeah.
It's we think it's the most obvious thing. We talk about prayer all the time, but then why do we forget whenever life happens and you're just going through your day,
Yeah. And you talked about it in like decision making, but I think another way that peace sort of guides some things is just bringing clarity to like our situation, because this world is kind of nuts, man. Like there can be times where it's just like, God, what is going on around me? Why is this happening? Where are you bringing me and my family? Or why are you doing this to this person? Why are you allowing this to happen? And just spending time with him.
Yeah.
When have you seen it bring clarity to your life and just kind of open yourself up to, okay, I didn't understand this at first, but now maybe I'm getting some clarity on my situation? Any specific time? For me, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't know, I can't, a specific time, but here's what I would say is a lot of times with prayer, what I've learned here recently is the idea, and we've talked about this in our church and things, is it's important to be honest, not good in prayer. We spend too much time trying to, okay, did I say the right words? Did I get the right formula? Did I do the right stuff? Of almost like, like God's this sort of formula that if we do all the right things, we sort of unlock him, and it's like, oh, there it is. And it's just to be honest. And clarity for me, I don't know about y'all, but when I internalize things, my brain creates weird stories about what is true.
Yes.
And then I start living those out. And so in my marriage, I'll start saying like, man, she's just being so selfish. Like, how can she even think like this and act like this? And like, she's doing it on purpose. And my mind will create this whole narrative that is completely untrue and unfair to Shay. And if I can find the moment to remember, and this is why prayer's got to be a habit, where it's like this muscle that you just sort of reflex move into in these moments. When I can be honest in that, like, this is how I feel. I feel like she's doing this. I feel like she's doing that. And the moment that you say it out loud to the Lord, it's like almost like the Lord is like, okay, like, do you see how wild that is?
Yeah. I use the phrase, just say it out loud.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to say some things out loud to see, kind of where our head is at. And, when it comes to communication, I've always, used the phrase, like said, when we are in a situation and we are thinking about that type of clarity and we're thinking about like what that actually means for us, one of the reasons that people struggle, I think, going off of that with prayer is because, and this has been my story, if I'm being honest, like I have, it doesn't always come naturally to me on like how to pray and that sort of thing. I think people struggle with how do I actually do that? And you sort of mentioned like, look for, honesty in prayer and like, not having like this perfect formula. What do I actually say in prayer? How do I, because, we hear people praying and, we've all talked about like, man, that was a beautiful prayer. that person just said, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So, and then I think about my own prayers, and I'm like, man, they don't sound like that.
Right.
And so, what encouragement will you give to people? Any tips or practices or even acronyms or anything that you guys use to sort of boost your prayer life and get it going in the right direction and actually making it a habit? What have you done over your lifetime?
Yeah, well, I, for one, like whenever I start prayer, I kind of have this, not formula, but it's just become natural to me and how I pray.
Yeah.
And so, like Bryan was talking about being honest, it always, I start with praise to the Lord, but then I'm usually just honest in my prayer about my life and circumstances and maybe how I want things to go.
Yeah.
Even if I know that might not be His will, like this is what I want. This is what my heart is. But usually talking through that, walking through that, I can come back to, but I know your will is better. I know your timing is better. And so just being honest with how you're feeling, just like you're talking about, but then having a humble heart to know that the Lord cares about you and He knows more about what you need and the timing of your life and what's coming next. Like we don't know what's coming next. And so you can trust Him with that and just know that His will is good, And so you can say your wants, but then just have that heart to know, God, but what I really want is your will.
Yeah, and if He already knows, it doesn't really matter what we say. It's almost as if He's just inviting us into a conversation.
Right, yeah.
And He's not really as concerned about what we're actually saying.
Yeah, and He's not scared of what we want. Like He's not shocked about what we want. He already knows our heart if it's different than what He wants for us. But just being honest about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you can't shock God with honesty.
Yeah. No.
So, and to kind of play off that, prayer, a lot of times it's not us trying to manipulate God into our will, but it's more us molding our will into His will. So I like the way Tim Keller always says it. He's, going off, His will is always best because we don't know what's coming. Keller uses this phrase, and it's really a great one. He says, God gives you everything that you would pray and ask for if you knew what He knew. Which is great because it's like, yes, if I knew what He knew, I would know exactly what to pray for, but I don't.
How to pray, yeah.
So then I love what you said there, Olivia, of like at the end of it, I'm just going to yield and submit. It's not my will, but yours. I've voiced my honesty, but at the end of the day, it's a yielding. So you asked for an acronym. That's one thing, and this is a little cheesy.
They always help, though.
They are. And so, pause, read, ask, and then yield. That's one that I can.
So it spells
can
praise.
Use.
That's easy.
There you go. Like I said, the cheese factor on it is pretty large. So
we'll put it in the show notes in case you forget.
But it's one that if that's something that helps by all means, it can be helpful.
How have you? Because sometimes I find it hard to like make it a habit. Sort of going back to what you were saying about how you forget. How do you make it part of a day? Do you have like a set aside time to pray? Do you have, because I know none of us would want to say we only pray like before meals, as the blessing or something. But is there a specific time that you have set aside in your walk that you choose to pray, or anything like that would create patterns?
Living like Jesus can seem impossible at times. So we've created a free guide for you. Just go to the link in the description and you'll get a free guide to help you take your next steps in living like Jesus. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, I always pray, when I wake up, before I go to bed, those things. And then my set quiet time, that's usually whenever I have a more extended time of prayer. But then also just during my work day, I have reminders that come up on my computer. I have one set for whenever I get to work. So because if I don't set those, I will forget. I'll get caught up in work and I won't do it.
No doubt.
And so that stops. And before I even start working, it reminds me, let me pray before I start working.
That's good.
And then I have one that goes off midday and then at the end of my work day. And it might not be a long prayer, but it makes me stop and remember God and remember why I'm working, what I'm doing, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So
those reminders are important.
Yeah.
And they're easy to set.
Yeah, technology. This is one area where technology really can be very helpful. Setting reminders. I do the same thing. I have reminders. They go off not in the morning because that's you just wake up and do that, and nor in the evening because it's just as I go to bed. But throughout the day, I'll have reminders, and it gets to the point where I find now I can turn those off. I don't have to have them. And It's not perfect, but I do find myself more in that habit. And it's, I like what you say. It's like, it doesn't have to be long. I think about Nehemiah when he was going before the king and he said like a 2-second prayer, like, Lord, be with me. And that was it. And it's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's all it has to be sometimes is, Lord, be with me. Open my mind, open my heart to receive what you want to put there.
Yeah. And I think, for me, over the years, what I've had some encouragement that I've gotten from other people is, I find it difficult to maintain concentration when I pray.
So yeah, that's a big one.
And even if I remove distractions, but especially if I have distractions available to me, I will be distracted.
Yeah.
But even if I remove some of those distractions, my mind will sort of wander, and that sort of thing. So there's 2 things that I've been encouraged to do. One of them is by you, so I'm gonna let you get into that.
Okay.
But the first thing was like, find yourself a different place. Don't stay in your normal spot. So if I'm at my desk working, there's no way I'm going to concentrate in that moment, right? I have to move to a different spot. I have to move to a place that doesn't have all my work there.
Is that why we find you all over the campus, like places?
Yeah. Is that why you come to my office multiple times a day?
I do walk around.
Where's John? Like, oh, he's off under the prayer tree or something.
You do find me at different places. That is some of what I'm doing. It is to get away from, because I find it really hard to concentrate.
I got you.
And so I do that. The second thing, though, is something you've encouraged us to do, is like, when your mind wanders a little bit, take that maybe as the Holy Spirit taking you to a place that He wants you to be, and think about.
Right.
Kind of explain what you mean by that.
One thing, so to get to that, one thing I encourage people to do is, if something comes to your mind, write it down. And write it down. And a lot of times that will be the end of it. It's like, okay, I've written it down. I'll get to that later. And our minds just are like, okay, you've gotten it down. You won't forget.
Yeah.
However, there are times when you write it down and you keep coming back to it, and it just keeps coming back. And those are the moments when I would say, if we believe that prayer is a conversation, not a monologue, couldn't it be that those things that we keep coming back to, that's the Holy Spirit saying, this is something that I want you to pray about. And this is something that I want to work through in you and with you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. And that could be the simplest thing of, my kid is struggling at school. I don't know, the financial factor of life that everybody's kind of stressed and worried about right now. And it just seems like a constant thing. Every time you go somewhere, it's like, my goodness, that's 4 times the price what I paid for it a year ago. And so that's always a constant thing. But so if you find yourself, it could be that the Holy Spirit is saying, hey, that's a spot where you're not yielded yet, and you need to learn to trust me. Yeah. And so I'm going to keep bringing you back to this. And so if it's conversation, I certainly believe that could be a case of that.
That's great. When you shared that with us, this was probably 3 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
It really... It brought so much encouragement to me, because I had spent so much of my life beating myself up during prayer, because my mind would wander and I wouldn't be. It almost felt like I couldn't get through them.
Yeah.
And so now instead, I take that as a time of like, okay, this may be where I need to focus, and I focus, and it's completely changed the game. And so I just want to tell everybody, if that's you, if you feel that way, just some encouragement to get started. No matter where you are, just start praying. No matter what your habits have been. Just start praying, and then be gentle with yourself as you're doing it. It takes time to build these habits, and take some of the advice that you heard today, because this is an important part of our spiritual walk. It is a building block. It's one of the habits that could really change everything, and it's what connects us with God. It's what grows us in our relationship with Jesus, and it's what guides us as we try to make decisions, as we try to bring clarity to this chaotic world. And so it's just really, really good. And I want to thank you all for being a part of our discussion today. Our next episode, we're going to dive a little bit even deeper into how to discern the answers that God is giving in prayer, and like some of the stuff that we kind of introed today. That's where we're going next. But I want to thank you all for being a part of this discussion, and we'll see you next time on the Live Like Jesus podcast.
So living like Jesus isn't something that comes naturally to us. And so we all need help in doing that. So we've created a free guide to help you out. Just click on the link in the description for you to take your next steps to live like Jesus.